One. Welcome back, everybody. This is Jeff Rosales here on the TVC podcast. So good to be back. It's been an amazing month here, full of change, full of spirituality, full of learning. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm looking forward to spring time frame here because there's a lot of new change. There's a lot of new smells that are happening in the environment. And one of those is having veterans who have gone through these changes and being able to lead organizations to make change. We need a lot more change makers here in our society. So our next guest here is, of course, a change maker. His name is Mr. Lenwood Long Sr. He is the CEO for the African American Alliance of CDFI CEOs, a coalition of CEOs of community development financial institutions, loan funds, credit unions, and venture capital funds that represent all 50 states, focused on social and economic justice for African American communities. But he also has a record of decades of experience, also at the political level, in economic development, community development. He's also a pastor, and he's also a fellow veteran of Vietnam. We love seeing our veterans succeed. So, Mr. Lenwood Long Sr., welcome to TVC, sir.
Yes, thank you so much, Jeffrey. It is my honor and pleasure to be here. One of the greatest joys I have is the ability to talk with veterans, because I think we have something in common. Not only that we have served for and represented, I think, well, regardless of the branch of service, this great country in times of war, and maintain it during the time of peace. And if we look at the military today and look at all places they are serving, I think everyone who has served in the U.S. Army, Marines, or Navy, or Air Force should be proud. And so I'm Army proud. I am Paratrooper proud.
Yes, sir. If you have any jokes my way, that's fine. I understand. I won't hold it against you as far as fellow Marine here. But I agree with you 100%. We all share a common mission and goal here, and I love the fact that we are working together as veterans to help veterans here. But before we get into your service a little bit, I want to kind of talk about your background, Mr.
Sure.
Long, as far as like what was your upbringing like?
Well, a great question. Yeah, I be honest with you, I am a product of the segregated South. I lived in a rural community, and unfortunately, I live in the period what I call the shame of America, where I remember growing up. If I got a bus, I went to the back. If I went to public facilities, it was a white and a colored water fountain. And those things I adjust to. And I think it really prepared me once I left that environment to really appreciate liberation and freedom. And that I had so many questions growing up, uh, why things were a certain way. And I remember my grandmother would always say that be careful who you play with. And I didn't understand it then, but I knew what she was saying, right? Because you don't want to put yourself be accused of anything, because your defense will be weak, because it always play out in the favor of white folks. So yeah, a lot of lessons growing up, but yeah, no bitterness, right? And I've called myself an overcomer, and have been about this mission of justice. I was raised in a very religious home, and I think it planted a seed for me to grow later into the spiritual area. And after service, I really became a pastor. And I pastored for 23 years at a medium-sized church, and it was greatest joy of my life.
Amen, sir. And I definitely want to talk about your spirituality as well, because I think that's something important that I've gotten closer in that aspect as well. My father, who, we're coming on the anniversary of Cesar Chavez, Navy veteran as well, right? He led the labor economic movement here in the Central Valley in
Oh,
Fresno.
okay.
But so my father was a bracero, right?
Oh,
Those workforce that came during World War II when a lot of the GIs were going overseas and they needed folks to come work in the agricultural fields, right? So the U.S. and Mexico had a agreement to bring in more labor. So my father was part of that process during World War II.
oh,
So
okay.
he told me about some of these things because he worked some in the cotton fields there in Missouri, and so I witnessed some of the things that he had went through. And to your point, it was his faith that even though I ran away from it, I always went to my friend's house because I didn't want to hear any of that that time. But
We all ran away.
we all ran away from it. And now, I lost my father in 2017, excuse me, to cancer. And now I find myself getting closer to it because to get closer to him. Right. And I think that was a big formulating moment for me. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I hope folks can take away how much faith plays. So, you grew up in the Carolina.
Right.
Did anybody in your family serve, or what led
Yeah,
you
I
to
had a
serving?
yeah, I had an uncle that served in the Navy, and he was the only one, to my knowledge. And by the way, we had probably in my household, they were cousins, but nine were raised by my single grandmother, and I think she and eight of them were boys, one girl, which was my sister. And we learned how to get along and how to grow as a family. And when you look back, that little 98, 105-pound woman with braids plaited halfway behind her back, nobody messed with her, right?
So I grew up in a big family as well. My father 11 my father had 11 kids that we know
Yeah,
of, and he had a couple
yeah,
more. But I'm the youngest, so I can relate. At the dinner table, it was always about, to your point of economic justice. I had to figure out, where what the pecking order was when I sat at the dinner table because I had older
yeah.
siblings. So there was talk about economic justice and social justice. I had to fight for a seat at the table.
I was glad to see them move out and grow up because all of them were older than my sister and I. And by the time I was a teenager, well, before a teenager, by the time I hit middle school, most of them had gone to New York or other places. And I was the first male in my family to graduate from high school. And
Oh wow.
yeah, yeah.
So
And then I
so
went to New York and
okay.
got drafted. Right?
Okay, that makes sense, right? So Vietnam era. So let's talk a bit about that
Sure,
period. What
sure.
was going on during that period?
Well, I got drafted. And funny story. I tell it. My aunt called me and said, "You got a letter and from the draft board, and you've been drafted." I went to the Marine station and said, I want to join the Marines." And I don't know how he found out. He went in the back, then he came back. He said, "Bud, too late. You're drafted." And so I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. But before that, I had a job at Con Edison, and as I look back on it, one of the best jobs I had in New York, because I basically before Con Edison, I worked in a number of factories and ended up working as a security guard at Con Edison and got to know the plant superintendent, and he sort of liked me and recommended me for a position. One of the things I learned early on is the ability to build relationships, the ability to treat people regardless of their color as human, and the ability to be, as my grandmama would say, to be nice to everybody. And so those are values that I carried on and went to Fort Jackson and then AIT, I have to base it. And then I saw this demonstration of paratrooper jumping. And I said, that's what I want to do. And then, you had to go through the exercise, run the mile in less than 6 minutes and push ups and all that other stuff. And I qualified, went to Fort Benning, Georgia, in the heat of the winter. And I never forget having to fall out 5 a.m. in the morning with boot jumps on, no shirt, but t-shirts, right, and PT and running, right. And that training was hard. I had this drill sergeant one day. He was determined to make me quit, and he put me in the dying cockroach and said, "You're gonna quit today." And I said to myself, nope, I don't care how long you keep me here. I'm going to find the strength to stay there. Right. And so, yeah, that was a great experience. And after jump school, I got my orders, and my order said Vietnam. And interesting, all my buddies who did not go to jump school went to places like Hawaii and Germany and other places. And all us who went to jump school went straight to Vietnam. We had 30 days. Interesting, while I was on leave to go to Vietnam, I got married. Uh, 2 days, and I gave my wife the perfect hook, and here it was. If you don't marry me, you might not never get a chance because I may not come back. And
That will
my
do it, Lenwood. I mean, no pressure on her.
my aunt and her mother say, "Well, y'all just wait." But we eloped. Got the country preacher to marry us 2 days before Vietnam, before I'm leaving from Vietnam. And that was the joy of my life. We've been married 59 years, and three children, and raised one. And it's been the joy. She's been the stable and anchor in my life. Even when I came back from Vietnam, half crazy, didn't know what I was doing, and had a problem adjusting. She found a way to bring stability to my life, and I owe that. Because I've been to veteran groups talking about VA benefits and all of that, and I see the condition of some of the veterans who went to Vietnam, and it literally would bring tears to my eyes. In wheelchair, without limbs, and not coherent, and just messed up with substance abuse, and it pained me to see veterans in that condition. But by the mercy of God and the graces of God, I was able to survive that and overcome it, and went to and interesting. My wife and my aunt. My aunt was a teacher, school teacher. My wife at the time was a school teacher. They encouraged me to use the GI Bill to go to college, and I was content working on a Marine base in Cherry Point, North Carolina, as a GS2 payroll clerk.
Hey, Lenwood, I
Man,
thank God for the GI Bill,
yeah,
and
I
I
know.
think it is one of the greatest
Oh,
investments that people, because I used it as well, right? And I am so grateful for that. Please, veterans or families that have
oh yeah.
spouses, please make
Please,
your loved ones use that
please
GI
do.
Bill. If
Oh yeah.
not, give it to your children. Make them use it. It is one of the greatest investments that America is making
It's the
in our service
greatest
members
one.
here, and
Greatest one.
I'm so grateful for that as well. And so the other thing you mentioned is the Vietnam veterans. My heart goes out
Oh
to, obviously,
yeah.
I'm an Iraq Afghanistan veteran, so a little more common, a little more modern as far as war era. Been there multiple times as well. But the Vietnam veterans, one thing that I've focused on, Len, one is why I love having you on, is I want to make sure that folks know not only the folks from Iraq or Afghanistan, but let's listen from our Vietnam veterans, right?
Oh
These are the
yeah.
veterans that folks didn't get as much appreciation and support, and I want to make sure that folks know your story, who you are, because we can all learn from a lot of the things that you guys have. You guys are a community that we want to protect. In fact, there's a couple of Vietnam veterans. One is in your state that we're working on right now. His name is James Capers Jr. He's a retired Marine Major, first African American to be battlefield commissioned in Vietnam.
Oh, okay.
And we're working on. He was actually the face of the Marine Corps right after the Armed Services completed civil rights integration. But he's right now he's nursing 19 wounds. He's 87 years old. And right now we're working on getting him the Medal of Honor. He's been nominated twice for it and been denied. The son of a sharecropper, born in Bishopville, South Carolina. His family faced persecution, and so those folks like that, like yourself, we want to make sure folks know about who you guys are. So I want to talk about a little bit of that aspect, because you mentioned family was kind of helped you in your transition, right? Your wife did, your spirituality did. What other things kind of did you go through once you left the service? Like, what was your transition experience like?
Yeah, so here is, I think, as good as the Army was to me, one failure was the failure to counsel, mental health counseling, coming from Vietnam straight back into the community. And think about it. I'm a combat veteran. Traumatic experience of being in combat, um, as a machine gunner, as an M16 carrier out in the jungle, shot at and shooting at people, killing people. And then you come back to America and you're on your own. And I had issues. I had problems. I had anger issues. Didn't know how anger management. I was quick to fly off the handle. I was alcohol abusive. I was just a wreck, right? And I took, my wife, my aunt. In fact, I don't mind saying I was so bad. My wife left me for a period. And my aunt, and I was staying with my aunt, and she said, if she meant that much to you, go get her. And I did that, and I was forced to change, all right? And so I think one of the difficulties that coming from Vietnam, without that counseling, without mental health therapy, and learning how to deal with the issues and baggage that you have from war. That's a bad experience, right? Seeing some of your buddies killed, and I had the unfortunate requirement to go to the morgue to identify one of my buddies. And these things live with you, and you come home, and without some guidance and coaching and mental health therapy, you miss the mark, right? So you need a foundation, and I was fortunate to have a family that helped me to get myself together. And then I think working at the Marine base, there was a supervisor who saw something in me and encouraged me to even take classes so I could be promoted. Right. And so when I look back on my life, I can trace every step to somebody who either encouraged me or helped me. And that's why I think it's important in all our lives to find ways that we can be of help to others in need. And folks are not looking for a handout, right? It's an encouraging word. It's a support to folks that you can be better, you can do better. And it's the joy of my life, really. That's why I say my work is the ministry of help. Yeah. And so, with my varied background and my experiences, one of the things I love to do on the side is coaching, because I think I want to help somebody get over some hurdles that I know I face. And also, I've been blessed in a number of jobs but it was always somebody who helped me, who looked beyond any faults I may have and say, your future is brighter than your present day circumstances.
Do you have any names? Anyone in particular?
Yeah, I think I have. I had a role model growing up, and his name was Vance Kirkman. And I just loved the way he overcome and was working as a. I used to know the fact that everybody else was going to Cherry Point, and he worked at Cherry Point. Everybody wore overalls and jeans. He went with a white shirt and a tie. And I said, I don't know what he did, but he's doing something important, right? And so he was sort of my role model. And I think the military, uh, people that encouraged me when I came back from Vietnam, I went home and then went to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. There was a first sergeant. I forget his name, but he was honest with me. I got promoted, and he said, "Look, I got to be honest with you. Uh, the captain may not have told you, but all the training we've been doing out in the field, sleeping out overnight, we're preparing for the whole division, 101st, to go to Vietnam." And I said this, and my ETS was coming up. I said this: the Lord blessed me once, and I don't want to pray on His mercy the second time. And so, even with my promotion, I got out, and I think along the way, when I came to grad school, it was the family, my aunt, who helped me stay in school, provided finances. Because something funny happened when I went to college, and I reported. I said I had the GI Bill, and the dean of students said, "Yeah, but you got to pay tuition." The GI Bill will help you, right? But the money will come later after we certify that you are enrolled. And I went home and told my aunt, and she wrote the check for me to stay in school, and that was pivotal. And then she stayed with me the whole while. I got a scholarship. I had a mentor, Dr. John Lockins at college, and but this was a and here's another thing that changed my life. This guy was a professor at Carnegie Mellon, and before he retired, he wanted to teach at a HBCU. And I was struggling in college, and he took the time. Dr. Dawes, he was white professor teaching at Black University. He took the time to meet me on Saturdays and go over and taught me to read and look at words that I didn't know, look them up, and on the back of a 3x5, make sentences out of them. I went from a D to a B in a semester based upon his tutelage and based upon his encouragement. And I end up graduating magna cum laude. But the reason it happened, it was because he was there to help me. And so Dr. Larkin and Dr. Dawes were spiritual and academic counselors to me. And I never forget them. And then when I came to Raleigh, once I finished, I got a master's. Got a had three scholarships. Went to Georgia State, got my master's, and then Eva Clayton, who was a boss of mine, has been a champion all of my life, and I call her my mentor. And so it's people in my life that I'll never forget, who stayed with me, and even in some of my lowest moments of life, would always say, "There's something better for you."
That's so powerful right there.
Yeah, yeah,
That you just shared, and I think the aspect of mentorship is really important here,
yeah,
and to be coachable,
yeah.
right? Because I get it. You know, there's folks where I've had situations where folks might have said, "Hey, that email was too aggressive," and I said, "No, I'm just giving her an order, bullet points. Like, no, you got to stop being aggressive, because that's kind of that's sort of sort of in our nature from a military perspective, but to also be coachable here." And it sounds like you were very
Right.
coachable and so
Oh yeah,
that's why they
yeah.
invested in your future. And I love that you said that you're in the ministry of help, right, for us, because it's good to, for those that give, God will give you tenfold in return.
Oh
And the
yeah.
fact that you are
Oh yeah.
doing that, sir, I commend you for that. One thing I do want to ask you is how much of what things did you take with you from the service? Obviously, discipline, leadership,
Yeah.
organizational skills, team
Yeah.
building. What are some of those things you took with you that you applied, in your education and of course in the business and civilian world?
Yeah. I think one of the things that people forget is the sort of orientation and training you get in basic training, right? And classes. One lieutenant I'll never forget, and I thought he was a little arrogant talking about rank has its privileges, but he said one thing: the essence of leadership is followership, right? And what he was saying is you have to learn the art of following in order to grow in and become a mature leader. And I use that as a basis to observe leadership. And it's also, part of the military discipline, a part of order, but also understanding that if you do what you're assigned to do right, the impact of that will somebody will notice and will be elevation from where you are into something even greater. And so fellowship is the essence of leadership was something that stayed with me, and it sort of regulate my thinking around what we as leaders should always remember, that there's discipline, right? There's coaching, but in everything there's a pecking order, and military teaches us, right? Military, I'll be honest with you, changed my life. It probably saved my life because in New York I was reckless. I forgot about my home training, and not only that, I when I got out and went to grad school and came back, I joined the North Carolina National Guard and stayed in the North Carolina National Guard for 23 years. And from that, right, got promoted, and spent one season of my life. I was the first sergeant of headquarters stock, the first African American ever, first sergeant of headquarters stock, and which is the main headquarters for North Carolina National Guard. But there was somebody who always saw something in me, right? That said not only was he a good follower, but he understand the principles of leadership.
I love that, followership that leads to leadership. And so, as you were emulating some of the good principles of these folks, how did you use that into your civilian and business world? And also, you're involved in the community as well, right?
Oh,
And
sure. Sure.
congratulations on being the first African American first sergeant.
Yes.
In that
Yeah.
is phenomenal, and
Yeah.
I hope folks understand that that's a huge milestone to get there,
It
especially being
is.
a senior enlisted advisor for that. But how did you what did you in your civilian business world? What did you do to navigate successfully? Because a lot of times veterans, when they get out to the civilian business world, as you know, it's a different lingo, it's a different language.
Oh yeah.
Like we are
It
talking about
is.
before, right?
It is.
We're aggressive, and we're ready to go and take charge, and the civilian world says no, slow down a little bit. It's like, hold on,
Yeah.
no, that because for us it's like life or death. That's kind of how we look at
Yeah.
things.
Well, two things. I think some of the management training I was taking, and you have to bear in mind that I had collateral duty in the National Guard that had military principles around leadership and gave opportunity for me to grow, further mature, and to learn some basic principle about management. There was a productivity course that the North Carolina National Guard had, and it was taught at the now at the National Guard in North Little Rock, which is sort of the headquarters of some of the training that take place for the national at the national level for National Guard. So I think, and then civilian training that I had, I think I married the two, and I learned a lot from that. And then I had a mentor, right, who was able to feed in me, and then I took risks on some things, right. I didn't see myself into. I was placed in positions that I had never had before because somebody told me you can do it, but I was able to learn it, right, and discipline with it, and having others who sort of would tutelage me along the way. And so I think the principles of discipline and helping in the military, because look, when you in war, even at your unit, you're not doing things alone. You're doing things together, and the military teaches us about being together, right? Unity is an aspect of everything we do in the military. When you're out in Vietnam, when you're out in the jungle, you're not out there by yourself. You're dependent upon, if you're in a foxhole, if you're building a foxhole, if you're building sandbags to prop up your weapon and all of that, there's other folks there to help you. I know when I was a machine gunner, you had an assistant machine gunner, you had an ammo bearer, right? That helped carry ammo, right? Because they used to say about Lenwood Long, nothing would come in front of it because he keep his hand. You'd say you better have different barrels for him because he keep his hand on the trigger. My philosophy was that if I keep firing anything in front of me, he's gonna raise their head.
That's so powerful, I love that you mentioned that because we're so good at being team players. Like we understand what the vision is, we understand what the
Yeah,
mission
right,
is, and then we
right.
go after. That's why veterans like yourself make great business leaders, community leaders, political leaders, because we're all about making change and making change effectively, right? And I love the fact that you demonstrate that example, because we're not all like, to your point, we do get to some points where we do have to work on ourselves on
Oh, we do,
personal
we do,
development, right? We
we
have to
do,
do that, break
we
ourselves.
do,
It's almost like we have to go through another boot camp, but civilian boot camp, or on the
we
spiritual
do.
side, you got to get broken down a little bit to get built up. And it sounds like you have done that, and that's why you are the CEO of this
Yeah.
amazing organization, which I do want to talk a little bit about, because I'm curious, like, why you got involved in community development, economic development. Like, what was your some of your reasoning for that?
Yeah, so I was working with in North Carolina Rural Economic Development Center, and I was assigned to as a special project. I was director of finance and administration, and I was defined the president assigned me a special project working with minority-owned credit unions and CDCs, and I just loved their work, and got the chance to be co-founder of an organization that provided services to minority credit unions, and eventually became board chair, and began to love that work and fell in love with it, right. And so I thought my career was going to be centered around administration, but I got into the Ministry of Help because what they did, if you look at credit unions, they provide consumer loans. And one of the creative visionary thing I did was to help them provide business loans by having a state program that provided a way and a means that they could do business loans. We set up a special account that served as a guarantee, which if they made a consumer loan, but it wasn't consumer, it was business, that they could say that, look, this is a 100% guaranteed loan. And so working out those kind of visionary things uh, made me want to follow a career in doing that. And then I was asked I had really retired, and I was asked to come and be interim director of a organization. and I changed that organization. Started from being a credit union focus to a small business lender, and develop a statewide small business loan program. Stayed there about 10 years, from interim director to president CEO. When I left, we started with less than 3 million, and when I left, we had over 39 million in assets. And providing loans, I developed a number of programs. I was very proud of a program I did for veterans to ensure that veterans could have access to um, uh, loans. We had a growing Latino Hispanic population in North Carolina. I developed a special program to reach out to Latinos and Hispanics, and hired someone who understood the culture and understood the language. Develop a women initiative. So I think one of the things that I wanted to do was position those who had dreams, because I used to have a tagline, "We are dream catchers." I want to position those who have a dream, but have something in the way, and we want to help you overcome that, such that if your dream is to become an entrepreneur, let us coach you, stay with us, and we'll prepare you to receive capital. And so I think, and that organization still lives today. Carolina Small Business Development Fund. That was Lenwood Long's vision, right? Lenwood Long Correction. It saved it from death. And then one of the things I noticed, there was a gap between white led and black led CDFIs. And what I did, I co-founded another organization to specifically focus upon how do you deal with the capital gap, which mirror, and let's be honest, the data show it, the growing what we call the racial wealth gap in America, and there was the same capital gap. And so I co-founded the African American Alliance of CDFIs to help them grow and help each other, and to do their work, while we are black-led CDFIs. Members serve everybody, and so it's nothing racist about it. It's capital that's available for everybody that want a loan. And so I think in this environment, we have to understand that when you look at organization that's doing good for everybody, down home we say everybody, when we doing services that impact white, black, and brown, we ought to be cheerleader for those kind of things. And that's who I am, and that's what I am. My record will show that I have been service and design programs to help everybody to fulfill their dream, to scale their business, to grow their business in a variety of sectors. It's not so much who you are, but how well you're prepared to fulfill your dreams in a way that you can push forward, and look at it at the impact of your business creation. What do? Some of you hire more people, you pay taxes, right? And you become pillars in your community. And when you have that kind of impact, hey, you gotta be a cheerleader.
I love that. I need to let that breathe for a little bit because you said a lot that is impactful, and I hope folks that are listening
Thank you.
here take
Thank you.
away from what he's talking about, because I have small business owners in my family. My cousin, immigrant, owns a restaurant. My sister and brother-in-law have a construction company in Fresno, and so when the pandemic happened, it was eye-opening for
Oh
me
yeah.
because I
Oh yeah.
saw the whole process of PPP loans, and
Oh
they
yeah.
had to wait months for them to get a PPP loan because they didn't have a last name. To your point, right? They didn't have a brand last name. And I said, what is going on with our financial system? These small businesses, these are the pillars of the community. They're the cultural pillars of the community. They understand what's going on in their community. They know their community, and not
Right.
to mention, I always make the point for small businesses, especially veterans, is for the economy to grow, we need more people to be a part
We
of
do.
the process. And so what you're doing is right on target here, because a lot of folks point like, well, we have these other for example, China or other countries that are growing exponentially. It's like, okay, well, if you want to grow America, then you need to get more people on the field, so they can hit the target. And I think
Yeah.
holistically together, that's how we grow the economy.
Yeah, and let's face it. I'm gonna use your example of PPP. The administration at the time found out that initially they were using banks, and they understood banks didn't fully understand the cultural dynamics of the total community. Meaning they only dealt with their customers, right, and didn't understand there were customers on the fringe who may not meet that qualification. And then CDFIs across this nation, the administration found out, was gap fillers, and they used them. And watch this, they outperform banks with lower delinquency and charge off rates. And so, just our organization alone, and we just did a study of just 11 of our organization did $4 billion in PPP loans, right? And so it's the when you look at the nonprofit sector who are doing lending, who are looking for and helping people who do not have the magic credit score, but we use this what I call the 5 C's of credit, looking at collateral, looking at capital, looking at capacity, and looking at character, right? And when we looked at your character, which is a combination of how you've been paying your bills, how you handle your cash flow, and if we see that look, your credit score was blemished by a traumatic experience that could have been medical, you could have had a large layoff, but you recovered. Banks will say, well, because you didn't meet that 620 credit score, you can't do it. But a CDFI would say, look, we went inside your record, right? We x-rayed you and we found out that there was something that prevent you from being a 620. But we see you recovered. And so we want to give you a chance to grow, scale, and be a pillar in your community.
I love that, because here's the thing, Lenwood, like a lot of maybe veterans or people of minority communities,
Hmm.
they're innovators. They're some of the
Right.
greatest
Oh yeah.
innovators
Oh yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
so why not invest in them so we can add more services, add more products to the economy? If they want to build making America great again, or make more American products, then you need to get more American people on the field to do that. And I love what you guys are doing
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
CDFI, because I think it's going to be a pillar for generations to come here, because there's a lot of small businesses or maybe startups that don't have that opportunity. And what you guys are doing, you're creating opportunities for them, and everybody wins in this sense,
I,
like to your point,
I
right?
love it. And let me be clear for the record. These are not CDFIs are not DEI. They they do work for everybody, right? Anybody who want a loan. In fact, we have to understand that part of the work we do is about fairness. Equity is about uh, fairness. Diversity is about ensuring that all Americans are part of what's happening. Inclusion literally means nobody is left out. And so when we think about these terms, we have to understand the full richness meaning of it, right? Because we're all Americans, right? And what's happened in the past happened in the past. It is how we deal with the now. I quote sometime Martin Luther King Jr. when he said that when he was talking about how do we deal with issues, he said you have to treat the day as it is tomorrow, and that's a philosophy that I have. Right, time doesn't wait for anyone, and we have to ensure that we do our part to make America great. America cannot be great if we leave any group behind. if we have disparate treatment for any one group. And I think that I am a part of a voice, maybe crying in the wilderness, but to make America great again means that everybody, everybody, regardless of anything, have an opportunity to succeed and become part of the American dream, whatever that American dream is for any individual. I didn't mean to preach that a little
No,
bit.
amen. I was gonna. I said a couple amens here, but I want you kind of talk about this last part because your faith and as a pastor, because you have to have faith, and like I said, you have to have faith in all these things you do, because there's a lot of challenges that hit you, and like I said, I wasn't getting too close to the word until a couple of years ago. Like, I've never read the word entirely, and I just said, all right, I'm gonna read it, and I'm almost through with it, but I'm absorbing it. But I think there's a lot of principles and values and leadership things that you can get from that, like military service. But let's talk a little about that part, because I'm sure, like, through what you described earlier, your upbringing and how you didn't develop a spirit of bitterness. You developed a spirit of fire and generosity and helping others.
Yeah, I want to be a change maker, right? For every denial I have, I experience, I want to position everybody else to overcome their situation, right? Uh, James says this in the Bible, the book of James. He talks about faith, and he says, show me your faith by your works, right? In fact, he said, look, some say, I'll show you my faith, but they don't add the part about my works. He say, show me your works, shows me your faith, right? In other words, that if I'm truly a person of faith, and we understand what faith is, that faith is doing. And if I hang around this whole notion that of our duty for each other, it deals with, as Jesus said in Matthew 22, it rests with two things: love God, right? And then love our neighbors, right? And so if we are believers, we have to have the principles around those two things, because God is love, right? And so I think I have a record of trying to help everybody, and I will not stop that. And my gospel was about redemption, about saving, and about helping. Because, like, one of the ministries I created was a food and clothing ministry. It was providing food to those in need, providing clothes. And then I had a community development corporation that I created. We call it Restoration CDC. And restoration was about restoring people in the community, restoring the health and wealth of the community, restoring the lives. That's our calling. That's what we should be about.
I mean, amen. I just have to say amen again, because what you described is the long suffering that you went through, Lenwood. It's not for nothing, because you know who you serve, and this life of service that you have embraced, sir, it has come back to you tenfold, 100-fold. Because look how blessed you are with your family, the things you're doing in the community. You're helping others, and not to mention you're doing your ministry as you will, because you have an organization, and through those principles you're slowly showing people that the light within you, and so now they're coming back in that perspective, and so I think it's so powerful, sir. And there's a book that I'm reading right now, and I want to get to what books you're reading, because obviously I'm reading the good book, but there's another good book by David L. Stewart, the wealthiest African American that nobody knows, doesn't have social media. It's called Doing Business by the Good Book, and he talks about how those principles here, and he talks about, like, his whole organization is basically his ministry, right? And he has been just very successful, and I'm reading it right now, and he applies a lot of scripture to his business, his life. which I think is just very inspiring. And what you just demonstrated, you're also applying the word in your military service. But this last segment here, sir, I'd want to kind of just get your final thoughts. What are some of your goals? And I do
Sure.
have to share that God's timing is God's always on time. I know we had talked about doing this a couple months back, and then when I mentioned change earlier, when I kicked off this podcast, I know there's a lot of change happening in your sector, right? So
Yeah.
I know God is on time, and He's
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
gonna try to put us in a platform for us to be able to prosper.
Sure.
But I kind of want to get your thoughts on how we can help you. How can maybe a veteran that has a small business or a startup or wants to get
Sure.
involved, like
Yeah.
what are some of your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you again for having me on this very important podcast. And I just want to say that to your audience, that to stay encouraged. That's going to be my word. Be not dismayed. That's what I tell my staff. In the midst of time, in the midst of troubled time, be not dismayed. And I think one of the things I want to do is make sure that everybody who has an opportunity and who's looking to scale business, I'm available, right? If they go our website, African American Alliance of CDFI CEOs, is if you put in AAACDFI.org, that's AAACDFI.org, you'll get there and you'll find me. Just hit team and you'll find my personal email address. I have this record of responding to everybody. I don't care who it is. I will respond. If I can't help you, I will tell you. And two things I will tell you, and point you in direction I think could be of help. Because I think every situation, this is my belief, this is my philosophy, that everybody who has an issue, there's somebody can help them through that. And one of the things I enjoy doing is helping people. That's the joy of my life. And by the
And
way, I'm retiring at the end of the year for the third time. But
so what's next? Real quick, by the way, he is not. I am a living testimony. He responded to me as well, and he was pretty responsive on that. So he will respond to you guys, and especially if you're a veteran or someone that
yeah, if you're a
wants to get
veteran,
access to capital.
if you're a veteran, yeah, I'm going to respond to you.
So
That's
so
my
then
heart.
so tell me, sir, because you have this life of legacy. What is next when you go for your third retirement? I'm still
Oh
working
yeah,
on my first one, but
yeah,
what's
Well,
next?
I'm thinking about writing a book. One, I really am. I have some deep, rich experiences that somebody can help. I think I'm thinking about the title of the book, Against Great Odds, right?
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
that those words there speaks a lot. So I'm exploring some things, and then I have a consulting business that I will work. My son is in cybersecurity. My daughter is in mental health, and I want to help them shape their businesses and do everything. I just got my business was certified as a disabled owned business, and I'm hoping to be able to help and make a few coins in the process. I just hope this that nobody mess with the veteran pension, right? Nobody mess with benefits for veterans. I think if veteran benefits are messed with, all of us have a voice that we need to raise in the midst of that.
Yes, sir. Amen to that. And the name of your business is it
It's
BVNL?
BVNL Associate.
Okay, so if you guys look at the ticker down there, you can go to his website. What
Yeah.
do you guys provide, sir?
We provide executive coaching, cybersecurity, and mental health therapy, as well as project management training. Yeah.
Perfect. I would give him a ring. If I were you guys, I'm probably gonna give him another ring after this, just to thank him and be. And yes, sir, I'm gonna hold you accountable 1 year
Sure.
from now to
There it
to
is.
make sure that book is printed. I want to see a book like Doing Business by the Good Book, but I want to
There
see
it is.
Lenwood Long. It's
You
gonna
got it.
happen, sir. I'm gonna
You
pray.
got it.
I'm gonna pray for you to do that, and I'm gonna pray for our veterans here as well.
Amen.
For our Vietnam veterans, I'm just so grateful. And just so you know, just so you're aware, there's another initiative in West LA that we're a couple of veterans are working on. Actually, a Vietnam veteran, Marine veteran, 80 years old, strong. He's a judge
Wow.
there. 300 acres of land was donated there by this Mexican American woman in West
Oh, wow.
LA. And so that and the land was supposed to go to veterans to house them and rehabilitate them. So right now they are going through a battle with the VA, and so we want the best outcome for those Vietnam veterans and those veterans in general who are homeless, who may not have access to housing. And so we're hoping that that Marine judge, hard charging judge, is prevails over it and make sure our veterans are taken care of. Like to your point about they don't come from our pension or our benefits. So it's an important case, and I want to thank you again, Mr. Lenwood Long. Any final
Thank you, sir.
thoughts or comments?
Yeah. Before we go, I just want again thank you, and I want to tell everybody out there, don't give up. Right? Don't give up, regardless of how bleak or how weary the time may wear upon you. Let your faith see you through this moment. And then to any veteran that may be struggling, you are not alone. Don't give up. All right, reach out, and I'm sure that Jeffrey and others can be a resource that can point you in the right direction. And by the way, if you have gotten away from the foundation of your faith, you'll find that rediscovering will knit you in responsibility in a way that you feel that you are an overcomer.
Amen, Mr. Lenwood Long, singer. Thank you so much for joining us, TVC. We look forward to having you back. Hopefully, when that book is ready to go. God
Thank
bless
you.
you, sir. God bless your family. And then again,
Thank
thank you
you.
for everything that you do, sir.
Bless
TVC
you.
signing out.
Thank you.